Relax. You gotta just chill out, man.
Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you at 1 something in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Where else would you rather be as a Steelers fan on New Year's Eve? And with me as always, except if he's not, is my big brother Rich. Rich, how's it going this lovely afternoon?
It's going. It's lovely. It's an afternoon.
And you're not breathing. Oh my goodness, it's been almost a week, so we even forget that we haven't had a show since the last game. Now, they said it for me on the hangover last night. I also mentioned it on, if you listen on the audio side, about the Mike Tomlin press conference recap, that we would be going earlier today because of it being New Year's Eve. I have people coming by my house very soon. Rich said he was a little bit more open if I needed to change stuff. And what it came down to was we either needed to go now or probably like 9:30 or 10 o'clock. And we're like, yeah, that's pushing it.
People are probably going to have things they're doing 9:30, 10 o'clock, unless you're me.
Yeah. So we understand that we might not have a lot of you with us live, and you might be catching this on replay. We're sorry about that. But at the same time, we were trying to mix that all together. But hey, let's talk some Steelers, because you and I, it's been Christmas, but you and I haven't really talked Steelers other than your frustrations with the knee-jerk reaction article since the game. So, oh my goodness, you gave up. You just stopped.
I just stopped. I mean, I'm sorry. But David, I'm sitting there, and instead of, it got to the point where instead of even thinking about the game, I'm sitting there thinking, I need to carve turkey. I need to do this. I need to do that. We're already way behind what we're usually doing on Christmas. And I'm sitting here putting all that stuff to the side for this crap. Yeah, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
But Dave, I'm sitting there, and I had my phone over there with me, and I got the game on, and I'm still kind of watching what's going on.
There just wasn't much to say.
Zero of consequence happened in the last 10 minutes of that game.
Actually, there was something. I was even considering doing an article for this. If I do, it's going to be for tomorrow, if I can fit it in with everything else. Because I actually have the opportunity to do articles outside of what I normally do. That's at steelcurtainnetwork.com because of the long layover between games. And I already did one where I've talked about it before, about splitting the game up like a hockey game into 20-minute periods, and how the Steelers have been a disaster the last 20 minutes in the last 3 games.
Yep.
If you look at the breaking point that I put in every game, they've been outscored 37-0 in the last 20 minutes of games. And in every one of those, they were either tied or within 7 points in all 3 games, and then got outscored 37-0 over the last 20 minutes of the game. To me, that should have been the Steelers' focus. My goodness. I mean, yes, starting slow was almost as bad. That was, I think, maybe 42-7 or 40. It was there's something.
I know the middle 20 is the only place they're actually earning their money.
And in all 3 games, 10-3, they outscored their opponents 10-3 in all 3 games. So 30-9 in the middle. So there's a portion of the game that they were winners in, but it was only 1/3. So in this case, it's the anti-meatloaf, because 2 out of 3 is bad.
Yeah.
That's where they're getting beat. So, but one of the things I was going to talk about is, my goodness, in the final moments, what are the Steelers doing with Naji Harris? Because it just seemed like they were down 19 points, not much time, and said, well, we don't need to try to win or anything, which I get it. You weren't going to win that game. But let's maybe pad some Naji stats. Let's get him more rushing yards than Jaylen Warren, so we don't have to listen to that narrative for the next 11 days. Because it just seemed like, I mean, the Steelers went over 200 yards rushing. But that's because on the final drive, Naji Harris had 45 of his 74 yards. Tell me that doesn't – I mean, and the thing is, could they have had Cordell Patterson in there? I get why they didn't have Jaylen Warren. He had already taken most of the workload, even though they basically refused to give him the ball hardly at all in the second half, even though it was dominant in the first half. It almost seems like there's an agenda with that more than anything. But if you just want to run the ball and do whatever, why do you have your number one back in there? Other than to try to pad his stats. You already took out your starting left guard and your starting left tackle. They had taken out Sayamalu and Dan Moore. It was Spencer Anderson, and they had what's his name? Oh, I can't remember. I had to type it so many weeks in a row for the inactives. Max Sharping, or whatever it is. I might have even misspelled it before where I said Sharpling, Sharping. And oh my goodness, he had one of the best PFF scores on the Steelers offense just from that little bit at left tackle. They took out their starting left side of their offensive line. But you leave your starting running back in and hand him the ball a bunch of times? What are they doing, Rich? You didn't expect this question today, did you?
No. At first I thought, they're just willing to run out the clock. And then I was like, I have no clue what they're doing.
Why not put your third string running back in there to make sure that you don't lose who you claim is your first string running back?
Correct. Why not put another running back in the game?
Yeah.
Why is Russell Wilson still in the game handing the ball off?
Yeah.
Why, it was like,
if all you're going to do is hand it off and run down the clock, why even? I mean, if it was enough to replace two offensive linemen, your two most veteran offensive linemen, then why do what you did otherwise? That's very suspect to me. I'm like, either one, they're not wanting to have to answer they're not wanting to have to say, why isn't it? I lost you for a second. There you go. Okay. Why are they? Now, where was I? Sorry. Maybe they don't want to answer the question of why isn't it Jaylen Warren over Naji Harris? Are they trying to boost Naji Harris's numbers in order for him to get more on the free agent market so they could so they can maybe do a comp pick? I don't know. To me, the way they played that at the end of giving it to Naji Harris so much didn't make sense. Unless there was an agenda that we don't know.
What about the game anywhere did make sense?
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
They did a lot of stuff throughout that game that didn't make a lot of sense.
And I've tried to block a lot of it from my mind. I did not watch it again. I had no desire to watch it again. And obviously they didn't care about scoring again at the end because the false start penalty with the runoff, the Steelers had timeouts to call timeout if they want to run one more play.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And I don't blame them for not. So, yeah. And Jaylen Warren was out there some on that last drive. My goodness. I think it was the last play. They threw it to him, and then they had the false start after that. But it's just, you're right. So much stuff about that didn't make sense. But it really was a rough time. My goodness. How much more do you even want to mention it before we talk about seeing some visible changes going forward?
Well, let me say this. If this coming Saturday things are looking the same way and the Steelers are doing the same things, you will hear a lot of boos coming from Section 539.
You know what?
Because I will start them.
You're going to hear some probably from Section 122, right?
Yes, it's there as well.
I'll put it there. See, I specifically wore my hashtag Pay Kyle shirt for those of you here live. Because guess what? I've been paying Kyle. Kyle just got paid.
Kyle just got paid.
Kyle and his cousin, who stays with you to go to college, they are going to the game in my place on Saturday night because I can't pull off a Saturday night game. Because my son has a fencing tournament on Sunday that my wife was going to have to take him to. But because I told him if the Steelers played Saturday, then I would make sure I went. Well, if I went to the game at 8:00, I'm going to be getting home just in time to go to that tournament.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I can't do that. It's more important to be there for my son. So I'm like, I am going to have – they're adults. I think it would be really cool if the cousins could go to a game together. So I asked them if they would, and they said, yeah, we'll go. So –
oh, yeah, but they're not driving up. No, they're bumming a ride.
Bumming a ride with you? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, you know what? I'm going to tell them they have permission to start booze if it's a lot more of the same thing. But it's, oh my goodness, that game, like I can't even remember the first half of that game hardly. I really can't. I mean, there was wasn't there the holding call? I mean, it's been almost a week and I've been trying to get over it. So there was the holding call on Washington on the Jaylen Warren touchdown.
Yep.
Right.
Followed by the very next. I even said, I didn't put it in the article, but I even said, you watch the Steelers will throw an interception here.
Yeah. Well, and the thing was, I don't completely agree that was a holding call. Not because it wasn't. Because those kind of things happen all the time.
Yeah, but what
and
it is,
it did not affect the play.
Yeah, but
don't usually call them if they affect the play.
But here's the deal, because you saw it happen multiple times in that game where Washington goes for the hand chop and misses. And when he missed, then he ended up holding. Okay. Problem is, when you take that hand chop motion, you become very visible.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you are on the end of the line and try for that play, you become very visible. Well, when you miss and then have to hold a little bit because you missed, the referee's going to throw the flag every time. Oh, you missed your move, so now you got to hold? Yeah, you don't get away with that.
Yeah. Then that was like, what game? It was Thursday. It was Thursday night, the Thursday night game. There was a play where a player got called for holding. And who was it? Herb Street that's on there on Thursday. Someone was saying about how it was such a good call. I'm like, that's not a hold. I said the defender did a rip move. The offensive lineman never lost contact with the rusher and held it. The fact that that the arm came across his throat like that is not a hold, because that's what we're told the rules are when it comes to TJ Watt having that happen all the time. So if that's the rule, then that was not a hold. Or every hold that we're told isn't a hold against TJ Watt really is.
It really is.
That's what was, those kind of things that are frustrating. So, yeah, and the interception, a lot of people I didn't even look at the whole thing with George Pickens on that. Coach Tomlin said it wasn't that wasn't the issue. The defender himself said, no, it wasn't my responsibility to be out there. I was in the middle of the field. Some people want to blame that there, but really it was a ball that shouldn't have been thrown.
Correct.
Would have won
which is honestly
$110 for Pat Furman hitting 7 touchdowns, but that's okay.
Look, the only thing, it was either A, an absolutely horrible play by Russ, or 2, Pickens didn't run the route he was supposed to draw the coverage.
Sorry, you said A and then 2. I always think that's funny. I know you usually do it on purpose. That's why I laughed. Is that Dumb and Dumber where he does that?
Next time I'm going to go R. And then 2.
Yeah. That's funny. Sorry. I was laughing because I knew you were doing that purposefully.
A.
So there was
2.
So there was a lot of frustrating things from that game. And the thing is that but if you look at the middle part of that game, the Steelers came back and scored a touchdown. Then they kept the Chiefs off the scoreboard before the half. Then they come out of the half with the ball, which is basically everything the Chiefs have to offer, in my opinion, with their adjustments. And the Steelers' bandwidth didn't break and gave up 3.
Yep.
That's against a team that is, you can't argue. You can see what's going on with the Lions and the Vikings, all those guys. They all have 2 losses. The Chiefs only have 1. Statistically, based on record, they're the best team in the NFL. If there were no conferences, they would still be the number 1 seed. Okay, so when the best team in the NFL does that coming out of the half and you hold them to 3, that's a win. And you answered it with 3 of your own. And then you fell apart. That's when everything fell apart for the Steelers. They hit that 20-minute mark. The very next play, there was a hold on Juju. And it was downfield, 4 yards. I think it was 4 yards. So it brought it back to be first and 16.
16.
Yeah. So they gave up a 7-yard play. Oh, well, no biggie. 2nd and 9. You're sitting about what you would if they would have ran the ball 1st and 10 and you stuffed them and you held them to 1 yard. Okay, you're still good. And they false start. I was wondering how long they would let that go with the tackle starting, and he pushed it too far. They called it very good. Okay, I had talked about that on the preview. So you're sitting at 2nd and 14, and I just said to myself, 2 penalties to start this drive. This is where the Steelers have to make their stand right here and get a 3 and out. And the very next play was a first down. They never reached 3rd down on that drive.
At all.
None.
Yes.
That's what ended the game right there.
That's why you saw in my article, I snuck in the post-game show. I made one comment. And it was somewhere along the lines of, for one of the top paid defenses, they're playing like trash.
Yeah. Yes.
The defense, the last 3 games in that last 20 minutes has been, second halves mainly, been awful.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to stop anything.
And I know people love to talk about the top paid defense. I'm going to bring this up. I actually had this conversation with our brother-in-law, who I share my season tickets with, whose son stays at your house and will be going to the game with you. I had this conversation with him. I'm like, people talk about the Steelers' highest paid defense. It's true. But why is it true? Rich, and I thought about doing this as an article if I needed to. How many starters on offense?
We've talked about this. Yes,
are not under are not on a rookie deal or on a league minimum deal
on offense.
That
would be Sam Alu.
Yep.
That would be Pat Freiermuth.
Yes. And technically you could make the argument that he's still in the last year of his rookie deal because it was an extension, not a renewed contract. But I'm not even going to do that. No. Now, it would have been James Daniels, but he got hurt early in the season.
Right.
2. Everybody else is league minimum or rookie contract. How about the defense? How many of them aren't?
Keanu Benton.
Yep.
JPJ.
Yep.
Depending on how deep you want to go, Peyton Wilson.
Okay. I wouldn't count him. I mean, I think Elandon Roberts has played more than he has. I mean, you could say that. So yeah.
You could, based on how much he plays, but you
could argue Beanie Bishop if you want to say nickel, but it's been back and forth with him. But here's the other thing. When the nickel comes on the field, who leaves? Generally, it's the nose tackle. So if you put Bishop in, you're taking Benton out. Right. So either way. So because of that, these are all guys on second contracts, whether they're expensive or whether they're huge contracts or not. That's why the defense, it's cyclical. It's going to even out or even work back the other way. That's
right.
So, but the thing is, but the frustration of that is like, if that's where your money is, are you getting the proper return on investment?
And we are not.
So I understand that question.
We are not getting return on investment.
I'm doing breaking news right now. Wait, I got breaking news right now. News. This is from Jeff Hartman put out there. Hopefully he's doing this article. From the Steelers, linebacker Cole Holcomb, defensive lineman Logan Lee, and wide receiver Roman Wilson return to practice, but remain on the reserve PUP Holcomb or reserved injured Lee and Wilson.
Interesting.
They came back to practice. Cole Holcomb returned to practice. They haven't used up all of their returns, and you get 2 extra for the playoffs. So it makes sense to bring those guys. Yeah. So, because like Gavin Anthony says, how much are we paying Ogunjobi? Honestly, like some of the people you could say, too much.
For what we're getting in return.
Yeah. It's not that you're getting – some people are really down on Ogunjobi. I'm not as much.
By the way.
I'm not as down. But it is still too much compared to what you're getting.
And for all those people out there that said we were stupid to pay Cam Hayward.
Dude,
y'all need to eat your crow.
I don't know anybody that's still trying to back that up. People are a lot of them that said it are even happy to say how wrong they were. So thank you.
Yeah, eat your crow
because remember, they did not pay him $1 more. They did not guarantee him $1 more than what he was getting this year anyway. Not one. It was just for, and he didn't even cost as much for the next 2 as what he had been costing. And I'm sorry, he should be the player that's in talks for Defensive Player of the Year.
Well, yeah. Did you see the post Corey put in?
That Corey put out there,
yeah,
and I know
was,
the other one he's referring to is Myles Garrett. It had to be,
of course.
yeah, that he has better numbers than what Myles Garrett had last year.
Yep.
So
better numbers than what Garrett had last year. Cam's not even in the discussion.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, and honestly, we're probably preaching to the choir here because the people that are here right now are I'd be surprised if there were anybody in here that was such a big mistake to sign.
Man, when they did it during our show after they saw,
yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
And it was like
they're not. This was so wise by the Steelers to do it the way they did.
Oh,
so yeah,
totally wise.
So, but that's pretty interesting to hear that those players are returning to practice. They'll end up on the injury report in some way, and everything. But that's pretty. To me, that's not about this week. That's about potentially down the line. And you're like, why would they even bother with Roman Wilson? You know what? If you got two wide receivers get hurt in the last game, who's going to be better, bringing in someone off the street or having Roman Wilson up and practicing and potentially ready to step in his depth?
Right.
So I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't. I mean, they have 21 days. My goodness, where would they have to get to? AFC Championship game, and where they'd have to bring him back, where they would have to make the decision
somewhere around there.
Yep. Same with Logan Lee. Same with him. It's if things go wrong and you need depth, there you are. Same with Cole Holcomb. Even these are guys that in case of emergency break glass, and you can practice them now because by the time you would have to make a decision, there'd be you would. Especially the way you're playing now, you would be making it farther than expected. So, speaking of which, you know what? Let's go ahead and take an early break so we can really come back and talk about. I mean, we talked about the things we didn't like. Now we're going to talk about how we would like to see those changes coming up. And of course, we'll do our score predictions as always. So if you're with us here on the live with us, we're not going anywhere. If you're with us on the audio side, we'll be back right after these messages.
Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax.
Rich, we're told we need to relax and don't worry, as our music says, but even for some of these super optimistic fans, such as Jeff Hartman, and pretty optimistic, I like to think myself more realistic, reasonable expectations I do with Greg and everything. It's hard to not worry after everything. But here, I want to bring this up. Brother Man to you says, why put out a report this early? There's a good reason why you put out a report that early, these players. Because there are media at practice that can take pictures during individual drills, and they would see it and they would put it out there. So you got to put it out there before they say it. So there's no official injury report yet. It's just that they were returning to practice. So the reason that they're back to practice, like I said, is, I mean, my goodness, the Steelers did this several years ago, going to the playoffs. Well, I guess it's really longer than I realized. I remember Roosevelt Nix his last year at the Steelers, and he missed most of it due to injury. They had him come back going into the last week of the season, so they could have brought him back for the playoffs, and then it didn't happen. So Brother Man says, "Oh, I appreciate that. Just wanted to ask." No, that was a good question, and that's the reason why. Because there's going to be people there taking pictures of practice and reporting.
Yep, and things. You want the first news. You want to put the news out there first, not
exactly
let other people put out and report and speculate. Just say you control the narrative.
So, Rich, when you're sitting there in section, is it 507? Is that what you said? What is it?
539.
Oh, no, that's right. I was starting with the numbers on the wrong side. I know you're close to the end on that way, but it's not where it starts. That's where 539. When you're sitting there, what visible changes do you think you might be able to see in this game compared to the last three?
Okay. The first visible the fans at Acrisure are going to be bundled up a heck of a lot more.
It's supposed to be pretty cold, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to be lucky if it's 20 degrees at game time.
Oh my goodness, that brings back memories of the Dolphins playoff game I went to.
I will have some Steeler gear on, but most of it's going to be underneath because I'm wearing the waterproof, windproof camo shell that I have.
See, you need me
For
to
that.
you need to borrow one of my jerseys that's so big on you that it could go over top all that.
Yes, but
If I had a way to get it to you, I'd get you.
That's
I got it. I got a jersey for Christmas. Did you know that?
I saw the picture.
Yeah. I got
So-
a TJ Watt and I got my wife a Boswell. That one won't fit you. The Boswell.
Yeah, but so it's going to be chilly. Visible changes from the Steelers. Honestly, Dave, it's going to. Here's how I'm going to be watching the game. If I see the same slow start, decent middle, lousy end, as soon as that lousy end starts, I'm going to be ready to leave the game, and I really won't have much interest in watching the Steelers in the playoffs because that will tell me that that's what this team has become. I do not expect any change. They're wasting my time.
Yeah.
Okay? So for me, the visible thing has to be better play at the beginning and better play at the end.
Yeah. You're right.
So-
You don't. I'm not even asking for that for an improvement in that middle part because it's been. I mean, I will
Correct.
take a 10 to 3 advantage over the middle 20 minutes every game.
Correct.
Every game. All you have to do is not give up more than a touchdown total in the other two, which has not been the case at all, and that's why they've been losing by double digits.
Yep.
To me, there's an easy answer, and then there's an even better answer to my easy answer. The easy answer to the most visible change is going to be when you look at the scoreboard. And it's not about putting up more points. It's about putting up more points than your opponent. So to me, the easiest visible change is the standings. Did the number go up in the correct column in the standings? Just win the friggin' game. You know, play and the thing is, to win the game, you have to play some winning football, and not just in the middle 20 minutes. Stop warming up to it. Stop falling apart. And part of the reason people are like, oh, this high paid defense. Who gets paid the most on in the NFL?
The QB.
True. But I'll just say this. But not every QB.
Right.
Not every QB. It's the guys that have made it through the average length of an NFL career, which is what, like 3.5 years of that.
3.5 years.
You know, it's guys on second contracts. It's guys that are older. And honestly, I sometimes have to ask myself, especially when the Steelers. Now, with the Eagles game, there was no excuse. It was a regular week. There was no excuses. And then the Ravens game, you only had 1 day less. Okay. And then the Chiefs game, it was really quick. So I get that.
Yeah, but it didn't bother the Chiefs.
It didn't bother
And
the
they
Chiefs.
even traveled.
But yeah, and the thing is, that's the thing that frustrated me. I'm like, the traveling team crushed by that much. And then there was the next game on Christmas where the traveling team crushed by even more. And to me, if you want to say, how did both of the traveling teams do it? Well, one, you could say, were they just better? Yeah, I think both of them were favored. But the other thing is where they really ticked off that they had to travel for Christmas.
Yep.
And they took it out on the field. I'm one way or the other. I'm not saying it. Ow. They just smacked my hand. So I shouldn't be so
animated.
animated here in the chat. Oh my goodness, I ripped my fingernail off. So it is what it is.
Are you bleeding? Do you need medical attention?
Yes. Blood. Sorry.
Blood.
No, I'm not bleeding. But yeah, I hate to focus so much on that, but really, Coach Tomlin, he's right. He's definitely right with what he's saying is a huge, potentially the biggest factor, but it's not the only factor. And that is, you can't be a team that can only win games by having the turnover margin fall your way. Because when you have an oblong spheroid that can bounce around on the turf, you can never guarantee that it's going to bounce towards you versus the other team. You can make some of that magic happen, but when you can't win outside of significantly winning the turnover margin, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You should be able to win without losing it. But if you can't win without having the big advantage, no. No.
Okay. So, you think about it. Here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see the Steelers win because you need to win that last game before going into the playoffs. So win that game. Okay? Then you're either hosting a game in the playoffs or traveling to Houston, who might be the only other team whose arrow is trending down faster than the Steelers.
And can we talk about Houston versus the Steelers right now for just a second?
Sure.
This is where the Steelers have an opportunity to come out on the better end of things.
You're going to go just where I was just starting to go.
If they play well. And that is, Houston has zero reason to play any of their players. Win or lose, they are the 4 seed no matter what. I'm assuming they're going to rest guys. But resting guys after playing that poorly is not always a good thing to do.
Yep.
So the Steelers have the opportunity to get right, as I say with air quotes for those of you that are listening in the audio form, much more than the Texans do if they rest everybody. Now, if the Texans don't rest everyone and they come out and blow the doors off of, I don't know, who are they playing? Are they playing the Titans or... Yeah, they're playing the Titans because I know the Colts are playing the Jaguars. That if they come out, and I mean, they could even do that with their reserve people, for all you know. But how much does that translate over? The Steelers have a hot opponent that they're facing, so much so that they are underdogs. But I also wonder if Vegas is thinking the Steelers are going to sit people when they're not. I don't think the Steelers should. It is much more important to be playing better than anything else. I know you don't want to play injured, but you just had a crap ton of rests. Use that to tune up and then roll into the playoffs. I think is the smarter move. Some people live in their fears, and I get it. If a key guy gets hurt in this game, I understand. But would you rather have the collective playing worse because they didn't actually get on track, or would you rather say, "Hey, we got to get on track first and foremost"?
Yeah,
give me options.
They got to get on track.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going through the motions of going to the playoffs, and you're not serious about trying to win.
Yeah. And people that are saying, "Oh, you can't expect this team to win anything in the playoffs. You can't," and talking about the playoffs, I'm like, I'm still reserving judgment for my expectation for the playoffs because it has a whole lot to do with what happens in this game.
Right.
Can you agree with that?
Yeah. So let me throw just some things out there. Okay. So let's say the Steelers come in, play well this week, beat Cincinnati. Okay. But Baltimore also takes care of their business and beats Cleveland. That means Baltimore, the 3 seed, the Steelers are the 5th seed. Steelers go into Houston. Steelers, though, got themselves right, kind of started to right the ship, go in, play well in Houston, beat Houston. Okay? Next, what does that mean?
Most
likely going to Kansas City.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. However, let's say this. You've now rolled for 2 weeks, right?
Kansas City won't have played since they played you.
Correct. Because you can figure they're going to be careful with some of their guys this upcoming week, right? Then they get a bye. Do you then take the opportunity to be able to go in and potentially punch them in the mouth?
I'm going to say this. If Kansas City rests their players this week, and now honestly, if they're smart,
Yep. If they're smart,
I would start
and
all
Andy
your
Reid
guys
is. Yep.
and pull and not even tell them you're going to do it, and pull your key guys as early in the game and more people as the game goes on.
Yep.
As much as you can. That's what I would do, because you still have that mentality, that preparation, and everything else. But then you're also saving them as well. And who knows? Maybe the Steelers even start to do that. Some depending on how the game goes. I don't know. To me, I think it's huge getting the 5 over the 6. They really should be playing for the 5. They really should. So, because I'm just assuming. I mean, the Browns have not done anything since they won their Super Bowl on a Thursday night. They've been a disaster ever since.
Yep.
So there's that. I'm not.
Not that they weren't a disaster before, but
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, with the Steelers finishing second place in the AFC North, in all honesty, that's probably where I would put them, and that's just realistically based on everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is. I mean, it's. That's a good way. That's a really good way to look at it. I will say this: whether it's the Steelers or anybody else, if the Chiefs don't, rest their players and don't even play them at all in their last game, the best chance to knock them off is going to be in the divisional round, whether it's the Steelers or somebody else.
Yep.
That's my opinion. That's going to be your best opportunity.
Yep.
Now, I don't even know that even if the Steelers are the 5 seed and they win, I don't know that they go to Kansas City.
I agree.
Because I would not write off one Harbs taking down the other Harbs in a 6-3 matchup.
Yep.
Not that it'll happen, but I wouldn't dismiss it. I
wouldn't dismiss
honestly,
it
I
either.
think whoever's coming in as the 7 seed, son, you're in a heap of trouble.
Yeah.
to quote Cars, the movie Cars, the sheriff. Yeah, that's a tough one. So I'm glad the Steelers can't be the 7th. That one's at least out of the picture.
Well, since you're talking about that, sure, you know what? Sure would have been nice if those stupid Denver Broncos could have just finished off that game the other night.
Oh, well, that was a great game, though.
Because that would have been a good thing.
Yeah.
Because then you'd have had Cincinnati not playing for anything this weekend.
Yes.
But honestly, at the same time, Cincinnati's playing for something. Okay, Steelers, they're playing for their playoff their playoff life. You're gonna get if you're gonna get right, you're gonna do it the right way. They're not just gonna roll over for you.
Yes. I agree. Now, honestly, it's funny. I don't want to say that. Oh well, it's not like the Steelers couldn't go to Baltimore and beat them. My goodness, Baltimore finally won in Baltimore for the first time in 5 games, and it's not like the Steelers couldn't. But if the Steelers end up being the 6th seed because they didn't beat the Bengals, and they're talking about 4 straight losses, I've got no confidence that they're going to do that.
No, I'm not.
Confidence
in that. I got confidence in them beating nobody.
Yeah.
If they go 4 straight losses.
Yeah.
Nobody.
I mean, my goodness, even if the Steelers lose and the Chargers lose to the resurging Raiders, and the Steelers still end up as the 5 seed, I wouldn't have the confidence even in going to Houston.
No.
Well, depending. If they just play a much better game and things just, you would think if they play a better game, they should beat the Bengals. I really do believe that. But Joe Burrow really is, honestly, if somehow the Bengals squeak into the playoffs, that dude's probably going to get MVP because he should be in the race anyway, but his team is stunk. And yeah, so they're playing. To me, you're looking at this stretch, and I'm like, yeah, they beat the Bengals in Cincinnati, but even being at home, this is a harder game because the Bengals are just they're when their back was against the wall. Now, granted, they had some easier competition to get on a roll against until they had to play Denver, and they still probably should have lost that game, and they managed to find a way to win it. So now they have even more momentum. So. But yeah, this is important. They like you say, they got to beat like outside Steelers fans said, don't care about injury. You got to beat the Bengals. It doesn't do any good to limp into the playoffs with 4 losses simply because you chose to rest your players. I still disagree that the Steelers did that in 2020, and I still think that had more to do with COVID protocols than it did anything else. Not wanting players to then have something that they could, because that was just a weird season anyway. So there's really something to be said about that. So visible changes. I would like, I already mentioned at the beginning of the show, I would like the Steelers to feature Jaylen Warren more, because I kind of had a little bit of a discussion back and forth with Jim Wexel on X that then he got I think he then finally understood that I wasn't disagreeing with him, but I was pointing out something. And that was, you remember the 5-yard screen to Naji Harris on Christmas Day? It was a screen. Dan Moore kind of messed it up.
Where Dan Moore messed it up horribly, where that thing had big play written all over it.
And Naji got 5 yards.
Yeah.
You know what most people were saying, especially on social media, which I know you're not looking at that during game, you're doing the article.
Nope.
I don't get to when I do the article for you too. What is a lot of people saying? Oh, if that would have been Jaylen Warren, that would have been taken to the house. And you know what I said? I disagree. That's what Jim was saying. Jim Maxwell. I said, I disagree. Because that play wouldn't have been there in the first place if Jaylen Warren was there. The only reason that play was able to even get the ball to Naji Harris is because they weren't scared of that play with it being Naji Harris.
Yeah.
That if it was Jaylen Warren, they would have been sitting on a play like that much more. And therefore, I don't think it would have. I said, I don't know they could have completed it to Jaylen Warren, which had nothing to do with Jaylen Warren, but had everything to do with how the Chiefs were playing. And that's the one thing. I'm not saying Jaylen Warren is a better feature back. I don't know that he's a 1, the way people thought, that he could handle the full load and everything else. But the way the NFL is changing nowadays, that the Steelers aren't quite there yet, it seems like, is that what Jaylen Warren brings to the table is uncertainty of what's coming. I think Naji Harris is much more limited in what he can do. Doesn't mean that he doesn't do other things better, but he's limited in what he can do. And the Steelers are very unlimited with Jaylen Warren. They can line him up. They can line him up wide. They can line him up as an H-back. They can line him up and hand him the ball. They could do so many different things with him that if you have Naji Harris out there, other than, in the typical, I would say I formation, but there's no fullback, but in the typical back formation, he doesn't bring you other stuff in the other way like Jaylen Warren does. Right. So I want to see some Jaylen Warren. That would be identifying a strength and utilizing it. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't want to see Jaylen Warren just for the sake of seeing Jaylen Warren. I want to see Jaylen Warren and used the right way.
And if they're not using him in that way and everything else, then guess what? It's pointless. It's pointless.
That's right.
Remember, and I say this so many times. I'm going to say this before I say my statement so many times. I wish we could just criticize coaches without it being so polarizing. Just because I say the coaches are not doing something well doesn't mean that they don't do anything well. So remember that. But part of coaching is taking your personnel and utilizing them to the best of their ability. The Steelers have done that a lot on defense, where they're trying to put people in places to utilize their strengths and not ask them to have to do things that are their weaknesses. I feel like they've been getting away from that. And I don't feel like they do that on offense. Outside of maybe George Pickens. Just trying, and that's not even enough. So, yeah. So, but it shouldn't be like this. Outside Steelers, wait, who said this? Outside Steelers fan says use him in screens and draw plays, or just a receiver underneath. I agree, but you can't bring him in there and do just that. You still got to bring him in there and hand the ball off to him. But by bringing him in and handing the ball off to him, and even though PFF continually gives him a bad grade, he's an excellent pass protector. There's just so much more you could do, and the defense can't sit on certain things that like they can when it's Naji Harris out there. So I would like to see the Steelers identify that and make that change, especially if it's working. I mean, that's the thing that frustrated me the most from the last game is how well Jaylen Warren. I mean, he had 61 yards in the first half, and I think he only had 3 carries in the second half. He had 10 yards in the second half, but he just didn't get the touches as carries. It was almost like the Steelers were stubborn and saying, "Oh no, you can't be the number one guy, not you. Now let's give Naji a bunch of carries here at the end. He's got to be the number one guy." No, don't be stubborn. Do what you have to do to succeed. Yeah. I'm sorry, I went on my rant.
Sorry, I'm used to it.
Yeah. I have one other thing I want to bring up before we get into specifically the scores and stuff. I was behind on a lot of my podcasts. And and I wanted to get the more recent ones, but I had missed Jeff Hartman's Christmas Day podcast of Let's Ride. I wanted to make sure I listened to Thursdays and Fridays. Actually, I'm still behind on Mondays, but I decided to go back and listen to Christmas because I've never missed an episode. I just had to catch it later. Boy, was it really interesting to hear his conversation with Steven Sereda of the Chiefs after the fact. There are some really interesting things to hear him say there. And one of the things the Chiefs have figured out is that their left tackles are terrible, and that by moving their all-pro guard out to left tackle in Joe Thuney, they've actually given them the best offensive line combination they can get.
Yeah.
So that sucks for the rest of the NFL. But he said something there. It got me interesting. He talked about the portion of the fan base that want Andy Reid fired.
Mm-hmm.
And all I can do is laugh because I laugh at the ridiculousness of it, and then I parallel it to the Steelers. Okay? Because from someone outside looking in, and you're like, you want Andy Reid fired? The dude just won 2 straight Super Bowls, and the team is 15-1 going into the last week of the season. Oh, but they haven't scored 30 points all year. Remember how we had people telling us the Steelers can't score 30 points? They'll never win in the playoffs. You know who hasn't scored over 30 points this year? The Chiefs. Okay? They're breaking their own rules. They're not winning the same way that they won 2 years ago. And because of that, there are fans that want him fired.
Bundle-rooski.
You know?
Bundle-rooski.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Couldn't help it.
I know. I every time I see him in a commercial, I enjoy it. So it's funny because Brother Man says people say that the dumbest, weirdest thing's insane. How we look at Chiefs fans saying that about Andy Reid is extremely similar to how fans of other teams look at Steeler fans that say that about Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
Now, the argument is Mike Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game since 2016. True. Oh, everyone's caught up on the winning season, consecutive winning seasons. Coach Tomlin's not. I'm sure he wishes people wouldn't even talk about it. You know, just because of the narrative. So if you're someone who really wants Mike Tomlin fired, I'm going to ask yourself, are you also someone who would want Andy Reid fired in Kansas City? Because there are parallels. Not everybody, but it just goes to show how those. I just thought that was when I was listening to that this morning. I just thought that was hilarious to hear that even the Chiefs, the 2-time defending Super Bowl champs, who have a chance to do what no other team has ever done and won 3 in a row and are currently 15-1, there's part of the fan base that wants their coach fired.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's funny because Brother Man says Andy Reid makes adjustment and changes up from time to time. Steelers, that's not true. One of the best things that had the Steelers winning their 10 games early in the season is because of the adjustments they made.
Yeah.
If they didn't make adjustments, this team, we would be sitting probably not at 10-6, probably more about 6-10, and already talking about who's available in the draft.
We would probably be looking at 7 wins right now if it wasn't for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and like I said, and like outside Steelers fan, he comes in and tells us the problem he has with Tomlin. He says he doesn't like the constantly in-house hiring. I get that too. I don't know that that's all Tomlin, but still, it's not that they're not beyond criticism, but at least identify properly the strengths and weaknesses. So I just found that parallel very funny. Rich, you ready to roll on and say what we're expecting from this game?
Sure. Rolling on.
To me, I think this is a coin flip. Not whether or not they win. It's going to ultimately determine whether or not they win the game. I'm not going to say the result of the game is a coin flip, meaning it's going to be so close and blah, 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 blah. I'm saying it's a coin flip of will we see what we saw the last 3 games, or will I didn't even count them up. Is it 11 days off now that they play on a Saturday, or is it only 10?
I think it's only 10.
With the 10 days off, will we see a great game
it's only
plan
9 days off.
Yeah.
It's 9 days off.
Yeah. Well, 10 days in between games. So, yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, yeah. To me, it's the coin flip of which Steelers team are we going to see?
Yep.
You're either going to see more of what we saw midseason, or we're just going to see what we've seen the last 3 games.
Oh, I hope it's not what we've seen the last 3 games, but won't know until I go see it.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful that it's going to be not what we've seen the last 3 games, and that they'll turn it around. And I'm going to, and I'll tell you when I give my prediction Thursday on the preview, that's the way I'm going to look at it, unless something changes with like injured report or other stuff between now and then. That I'm going to look at it as hopeful as I can. Plus, man, I would be freaking 14-2 with my picks if I just would have stuck to what I picked the night the schedule came out. Honestly, that's where I'd be sitting. And I picked the Steelers to win this game to finish off the season back then, so I'm going to stick with it. So Rich, give us your thoughts on this game.
I got one more thing I'm going to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Before I give you the thoughts on the game and my score. Okay. So help me. If the guys in the stadium have wait in the fourth quarter with the Steelers down 19 and play Renegade again, I will boo.
Yeah, it's funny because
boo.
I asked Greg. Okay, I asked Greg Benevit, who was my co-host on Pittsburgh Standard Time, who was at the game, if they had stuck around long enough for Renegade, and he said they were not there when that went on. Because I wanted to know, I can't remember which beat report it was, but one beat reporter said that it was booed.
Which should have been.
I never got confirmation if it was or not.
Should have been. Because at that point, don't play it.
Yeah.
If you're playing just to play it, what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. There you
Can
go.
I bring up something?
Sure.
It's another subject. Outside Steeler fan was saying to someone else, coaching trees matter. What have I said over and over again?
Coaching trees don't matter.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Yeah.
Coaching trees matter if you are
Mike
taking
Malarkey.
Yes. If you are taking young and up and coming coaches and making them your coordinators, then your coaching tree matters. Okay? If you're taking Canada, that shows the failure because he's someone who you thought maybe that could have been, and it obviously wasn't.
But here's the other thing. Are you if you're picking coordinators with the idea that they're going to become your coaching tree, you're picking them for the wrong reason.
Exactly. Because look, for the Steelers to try to get now, I know a lot of people are down with Terrell Austin, and I'm sorry, Shannon White is completely wrong because I don't think he understands how coaching works. I love you, Shannon. But to say Mike Tomlin's the defensive coordinator, that's not true. There's responsibilities for coordinator. Mike Tomlin is the head coach. That means he trumps everything the coordinator does. You know what? The offensive coordinator is not going to come in because they still have one. Not going to come into the Chiefs and not do Andy Reid stuff. He's lucky if he calls the plays, which I don't think he does. I think Andy Reid does. Coach Tomlin doesn't even call the defensive plays. But you're still running what Mike Tomlin. That's how it works with every NFL coach. That's how the coaching hierarchy works. Every defensive coach, it's their defense. Every offensive coach, it's their head coach. It's their offense. That's simply how it is. It's not anything unusual. So
But you don't do those things without the okay.
Yeah.
Of the head coach.
Exactly. Even though Mike Tomlin's a defensive coach, he still has complete authority over the offense. He does. Just like Andy Reid has complete authority over Steve Spagnuolo and the defense. He does. That's just the way it works. But when you talk about coaching trees, my thing is people might not like Terrell Austin. They might think they need to move on from him. And that's a thing we'll talk about a lot once the season is over. And I've got a lot to break down with that. But do you realize why the Steelers don't have a coaching tree under Mike Tomlin? Look at both of his coordinators right now. What are they? Former head coaches.
Yep.
When you have former head coaches that it didn't work as a head coach, but the whole reason you became a head coach is because you were a great coordinator, those are great people to hire.
Chuck LeBeau. Oh,
Yes.
sorry. Did you hear?
Yes, yeah. Those are great people to hire. So you shouldn't just be hiring with the whole idea. So this is something the national media has gone on with because they're dumb and don't know what else to talk about. And they say, the coaching tree, the coaching tree. Okay. Was Bruce Arians the coaching tree of Mike Tomlin? He went on to be a head coach. I mean, he got fired from the Steelers before he did. He was not the offensive coordinator until Mike Tomlin got here. That was Ken Wisenhunt.
Yeah.
So you can't say that no one went on to be a head coach. When you're taking great coaches that it didn't work out. I mean, that's kind of the Steelers' MO. They did it with Mike Munchak in the offensive line. They did it with Brian Flores as a senior defensive assistant. They took former head coaches that it wasn't working out for them and gave them and had them taking the step back. That's not a bad philosophy, but that's why you don't have a coaching tree. If you really want the best candidates, what's better? The up-and-comer that's never shown that they can do it, or someone that's shown that they could do that job, got promoted, couldn't do that job, but did a really good job with the one that you're going to hire them for? So I agree, the whole Randy Fichtner and Matt Canada thing, 100% agree with that. That was a waste of 6 years. But the whole reason Randy Land was there was because Ben wanted it. The whole reason Canada was there was because Rooney wanted it. Because he didn't want to pay anybody after the COVID season. So
That's right.
Okay. So I'm done on that. Yeah. So I'm done.
Can I
Okay.
finish up? Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I just had to do that.
That's all right. So got off my regular.
Wait.
Whoop.
Answer the question. Who calls the defense? Terrell Austin or Mike Tomlin? The answer is Terrell Austin.
Terrell Austin.
Now, Mike Tomlin might tell him what he wants.
Mike Tomlin might walk over to him and say, "Hey, we should do this."
Or
And let me tell you what,
Yeah.
Terrell Austin's probably going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like we talk about Danny Smith and we talk about the special teams. Anytime you see a fake somewhere on the special teams, Mike Tomlin made the final decision on whether or not to do it or not. Danny Smith might come up with the idea and say, "Hey, this would be a good time to run this fake."
Yeah.
The final decision on whether or not it's run or not is Mike Tomlin's.
Yeah. And Gavin brings up a good point. He says, I don't think Austin was ever a head coach. I think he was an interim head coach. Wasn't he?
I thought so. Hold on, hang on, make me look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do, 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 do.
Yep. Yep.
Do, do, do. Okay, so come on, you're to be stalling for me while I'm looking this up.
I was reading, Biggie Bronco came in here and was talking about, the Shanahan tree and everything, which is huge. But guess what Mike Shanahan wanted? He didn't want other guys that had been there, done that in order to do it. He wanted to shape these young guys and have them do things his way. That's just a different philosophy. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And he did a great job of it. He really did.
Terrell Austin, at least I'm not seeing anywhere where he's been listed as even an interim head coach.
Yeah. I know he was a defensive coordinator somewhere else. Maybe that was it. He was a defensive coordinator in Cincinnati.
Yeah, defensive coordinator in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Defensive coordinator in Detroit. Defensive coordinator in college. So that apparently has been
Honestly,
where he's been.
I have to say this. I was really thinking more about Arthur Smith when I was saying that. And Dick LeBeau. Yeah. So
all right.
Yep. All right. We got off on that tangent, but it was still a good thing to talk about.
All right. That's okay. Get back to talking about the game. Okay. Game comes for me. Here we go. Game comes down to one thing. Okay. For me. Here's how I'm picking my score. How do you think I'm going to pick my score, Dave?
Let's see. You're going to roll some dice.
Nope.
You're going to take scores of other games you were at and repeat them.
Not so much that, but it really just comes down to this, okay?
Uh-huh.
I keep talking that in stadium I've been perfect since COVID.
Yes.
So to me, I mean, if there's a trend for the Steelers, that's the biggest trend they have.
Big
going
Bro's
for
got to
them
be
right
there.
So
We're
is that
sending
when
you to Houston.
That's right. So Houston, there's a problem. So I'm picking this totally on. I don't know what I'm going to see from the Steelers, but I'm going to make my score prediction based totally on the fact that I'm going to the game. So because I'm going to the game, Steelers should win. So final score: Steelers 24, Bengals 17.
All right. I'd be more likely to add 10 to each of those just because of, I mean, my goodness.
It's gonna be cold.
No, you're right. You're right.
That's why
Yeah,
it's going to be
yeah.
cold, and it could potentially be quite windy.
But I mean, my goodness, even even this past week, that Bengals and Broncos game started off so low scoring for so long. So yeah, so that was, and then the score ended up exploding, and it was also overtime helped with that as well. So yeah, so I like that. That's your score. Dion, you're going to have to put it in there because I didn't tell people the rules. You are not allowed to tell your scores that I'll bring them up until after I put that in there. It's there. I don't think we have as many people here as we normally do because of the time we went. We're going to bring them all
Yeah, we
up.
do. We got a lot more people. We have more people here than sometimes we've had in the evening, so we're doing
Yeah,
okay.
well, honestly, yeah, we actually have a lot more people here on Twitter than
Yes.
we normally do.
Correct.
Is what's going on. So then necessarily on the YouTube side. Okay, but we got Mark Malone with 41-10 bungs. Okay. Gavin Anthony says Steelers 30-27. Thomas Riley says Bengals 20, Steelers 20. Thomas, bless your heart. Bless your heart. Even through the 3-game losing streak, you've done it. You've stayed true. No one you know says 37-24 bungholes. Outside Steeler fan says good guys 24-20 because of the big bro magic.
Big bro magic.
Claude Bishop says 38-20 Bengals. And people that are down on the Steelers right now, I get it. I really do. Because things have not been good these last 3 games. Have they played the 3 best teams that they face all season? I think so. Here we go. Craig J. Lawson has 28-24 black and gold. Brother Man 2 has Steelers 42, Bengals 24. Hey, I'd love that one. TD Tom Dessenberger says 31-27 Steelers. I'll wait for a few more to come in, but while we do, hey, make sure you're checking out all of our podcasts. We should have our normal schedule up until Saturday. Haven't figured out Saturday yet because it's a Saturday game. But I know last minute thoughts will be in there somewhere. Not sure what we're going to get from the rest of this typical Saturday stuff, but our YouTube shows should be good to go the rest of the way. And we're going to have our content at steelcurtainnetwork.com as they are working on getting us ready for our facelift. They've even been running some test things that you might have even been able to see. Really excited about that. So make sure you're doing that. We got another one with John Moore of Steelers 35, Bengals 30. Rich, what do you have to say here to close us out tonight?
Well,
wait a second. This afternoon.
thank you. Well, I will not be sitting in the comfort of my living room on my sofa writing the knee-jerk reaction article come Saturday. I will be in Acrisure Stadium in section 539. I will be doing one of 2 things. Mm-hmm. I will be cheering my full head off, or I will be booing my full head off. So is really what it's going to come down to, because I'm either going to let the Steelers know that I like what I'm seeing, or they're going to know that I'm tired of seeing the same old thing.
Yes.
So I vote for the former, not the latter, but that will be up to the Steelers. It's going to be cold, but I like cold. By the way, I will bring up one quick last point. There's the NFL, and their stupid scheduling has totally screwed my weekend.
Can't ice fish either day.
Can't ice fish either day because of where they decide to put this game.
And honestly, I'm saying, was this really the best division to have on Saturday? This has as much to do with Hard Knocks as it does anything else.
Oh, of course it does. Yeah. But, so I'm not going to probably get to go catch some fish this weekend, but I am going to get to go up and hang out in Pittsburgh and hopefully see a really good football game. Can't wait.
You gotta just chill out, man.
Can't wait.